Disclaimer: the content provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. While we discuss topics related to mental health advice, life wisdom, and alike, the opinions expressed are personal views of the hosts and do not constitute professional, legal, or medical advice. We make no representations or warranties about the accuracy or completeness of the information discussed. Any action you take based on the information in this podcast is strictly at your own risk, and we are not liable for any losses or damages in connection with its use. Additionally, this podcast may contain discussions around addictions, substances, which are intended for adult audiences. We do not endorse any illegal activities. Please consult your local laws before engaging in any actions related to this content. By listening to this podcast, you agree that you are over the age of 18 or the age of majority in your jurisdiction and understand the terms of this disclaimer.
Welcome to the Balancing Forces podcast, where two opposites collide in the best way possible. One brings the fire,
the other keeps it chill.
But together we share life's lessons, hard-earned wisdom,
advice you can actually use.
Whether you need a fresh perspective or just a laugh, we're here to elevate your mind. So buckle up, because things are about to get real and
really funny.
Are you ready to level up your astrology game? Join the Alchemist Laboratory by Solar Systems. For just $33 a month, you get access to 10+ courses, a resource library, manifestation secrets, live Q&As, and so much more. Over $2,300 in value. Transform your understanding of astrology and unlock hidden knowledge. Sign up now through the school app and follow Solar Systems on TikTok and Instagram.
Chapter 31. The Power of the Third Path. We are led to believe that at every crossroads in life there are two paths, and your job is to decide which one to take. The crossroads may be on some major life decision, such as, should I take the job in San Diego or stay in Boston now that I've begun to build up a base of friends and cool things I like to do? Or have a third child, or buy that vacation cabin, or the university near the home, or that intriguing college 1,000 miles away. Or the crossroads might be on something smaller, such as your parents or my parents' house for Thanksgiving, or even train for the marathon that I've always wanted to run, or really become more deliberate about slowing down and getting more rest at night. Or the crossroads can be even minuscule, yet significantly important nonetheless, such as, do I really need to be drinking coffee every day, or is it just a habit? Or should I tell Susan that I just can't be her friend anymore? Bottom line, we are constantly, even daily or hourly, meeting crossroads. And while it might be tempting to think I'm overwriting the scene a bit, every crossroads is a reflection of your values, your beliefs, and your fears. It's a little different from a corporation constantly reassessing if each decision is consistent with its mission statement and core values. If the choice at each crossroads, even or especially the small decisions, is not consistent with who you really are in your soul, negative energy begins to build up inside, even slightly, bit by bit. Of course, making decisions consistent with one's own soul naturally demands being first in tune with the rumbling of one's own soul. Everything is predicated on that. And if you're still running from the voices of your own soul, still refusing to slow down, still refusing solitude, then the decisions at each crossroads are not consistent with your truest self. Thus, negative energy is building upon the very negative energy you're already running from. The choices at every crossroads, in both the big and small, as well as the medium, things in life, we are forever, even daily, at crossroads, forced by life to make a decision, this way or that. And classically, this crossroads, this fork in the road, holds two paths, which we were forced to choose between. Each path then determines what comes next, each building on the last crossroads. But the most important aspect to crossroads that many people are quite unaware of is the simple fact that there are never just two choices at crossroads. In fact, when distilled to their essence, there are always three. This is a critical point to understand. For so many people, the crossroads and decisions of life start at a young age and are defined by two paths. The path that is expected of me by others, and the exact opposite path that is basically my rebellion against those who are trying to tell me what to do with my life. The first is the path of the shoulds. The second I call the screw you path, or the path of the middle finger. The first path is the path of the acquiescence, being a good boy or girl, and fulfilling obligations to others. It is the path of fear. It is the path of no originality, no authenticity, and no liveliness, no spirit. It is the life ruled by an external power source. Ironically, this is a very exciting path, simply because it's easy. Just do what the important people in your life tell you to do. No thought required. Granted, it gets very hard later because it'll suck the very life out of your soul, but it almost always is a clear path, assuming there is no dissonance between the important voices in your life. I counseled a 20-something gay man who had been in a serious relationship for several years since college. Interestingly, he had almost never in his entire life fought with his father, who had largely been a single parent. He respected his father, and his father totally encouraged his being gay. The son came to me because he was, for the first time in his life, arguing and fighting with his father. He was at an almost complete loss for why. There were many nuances to the equation, but one of the most obvious whoppers to me was that the young man now had more than one primary power source in his life. So now the two primary power sources were not in harmony. It's not that the two power sources, his father and his lover, disliked each other per se, but the young man's partner had very different ideas about life, about my client's past, and even about his father. And my client embraced a great many of those new ways of looking at life. Of course, the father saw this as a loss of loyalty and love. He was greatly threatened. As a result of all of this, my young client, who made life out of doing what he was told, now had a massive inner turmoil. So, what does a person who normally does what is expected of him do when he's told two different things by two roughly equal external power sources? This is where my client came to me, smack dab in the middle of this angst and confusion. He couldn't make a decision to save his life, for no longer was the path of the shoulds a clear out. The second path is the one of rebellion. What this path lacks in originality, as it is rarely little more than going in the opposite direction of whatever the first path, the path of shoulds, of explicit expectations, it makes up for in spirit. This path will feel like an original path to the person traversing it, and it will look like it to others simply because it is out of the forbidden land prohibited by whomever is still the real power source in the person's life. However, just because it is forbidden by the external other person does not mean it's authentic or the true path for the person traversing it. It is nothing more than a big screw you to the person or persons seeking to control this person's life. It is full of hubris and gusto, but it is in the end a reaction. It is not a self-generated action. Now, this path of the middle finger requires carving it yourself, going it alone, but you can already see the path because it is made visible simply by the fact that your external power source doesn't want you to take it. It is defined by the negation of something else, something expected. Further, the path of the middle finger is also far more easily endeavored because it is cooked up and kept boiling by the hurt and anger rising up from the depths of your soul. But that doesn't mean it's your path, your authentic path, reflective of your deepest inner truths. It is just a path of defiance, still dependent upon the external power source for that initial pulse and push. Go too far down the path of the middle finger, become too deeply ensconced in your rebellion against your external power source, and it becomes a willingness to take yourself down as a mighty screw you to your father, your mother, or whoever is trying to control your life, whomever has been trying to tell you that who you really are doesn't matter. The person driven by the most violent, angry screw you will self-sabotage, self-flagellate, and self-destruct in a sort of, you think I'm no good and don't matter? Fine, I'll really show you how bad and worthless I am. The person is in no way driven by authenticity and inner truth, only by the pain of negation of his external power sources. Again, the path of the middle finger takes strength and spirit. It is worthy of respect for that strength it demands, but it must not be confused with a soul-driven path. The madly successful women who are forever stuck on the path of the middle finger. One of the exercises I regularly engage in with my clients is to explore the notion of trigger words. I explain that I have certain words or phrases in my own personal life that are indicators of foul things afoot inside me. These trigger words are indicators of when I am inadvertently going down a path that is not in my best interest. For example, the words should and figure out are huge trigger words for me. When I find myself thinking, man, I need to figure out what I'm going to about, or when I realize I'm saying to myself, I should go and, or I should tell him, Anytime I find myself using the word should to myself, I know I am about to do something not because I want to do it, but because I am doing it for some external power source. Family, girlfriend, society. Anytime I find myself using the words I need to, figure out, it is a spot on, perfectly clear indicator I am trying to force an analysis or force an end result. I'm not letting go, trusting flow, and living in the full knowledge that inspired answers will come at precisely the right moment. Well, badass counseling seems to attract an inordinately high number of extremely driven women. As a result, I have seen a distinct pattern in trigger words of off the charts successful women. There are two phrases innately tied into each other that have kept these uber achievers locked in a somewhat gratifying yet painful and draining life course of supreme accomplishments. The trigger words that started the whole mad quest in their lives decades ago were you can't, you'll never, or some derivative thereof. These words incited them to violence on their own souls in the form of seeking to prove themselves in the eyes of either a mother or a father who spoke those fateful words. You'll never amount to much. You can't do. You're not good enough to. You'll never be worth your weight in salt. You're not smart enough to. You can't become. You're not pretty enough to. These colossally insulting words trigger a whole lot of women to become world beaters. Further, they gave birth to three or four most glaring and forceful trigger words in the successful woman's head. I'll show you. Bleep. If I've got a very driven young or middle aged woman, a very tired yet successful middle aged woman coming to me for counseling, I know for almost absolute certainty that she is stuck on the path of the middle finger. She is a very successful rebel or rebel good girl, unwittingly trying to not only prove herself to a parent who never believed in her, but break the soul cement into which are written the powerful words that I am not good enough. Thus, one of my tasks is to help her see that those trigger words, I'll show you, are reflectively, compulsively driving her to do the things that I do not believe her soul actually longs to do. And the fatigue she is experiencing is a direct result of spending a life on a path that was never hers to begin with. Seeking a life of greater peace and happiness, she must move into greater deliberateness. Specifically, she must first become aware. She must look for and see or hear which words or phrases are ringing in her head whenever she is about to take an action, great or small. Is this next action driven by the words, I'll show you, or perhaps it is driven by I should or screw you, I'm gonna? These trigger words and more are immediate indicators that the action you are about to engage in is driven by an external power source, not your own authentic voice. And really, the point of this book is that there is no lasting joy on any path chosen by an external power source. The third path. The very real and not so obvious truth about crossroads is that there is always the third path. It's there, but you can't see it. And the reason it's not visible is because it has not been made by anyone else yet. It doesn't exist yet as a path. It's original to be defined by you. You have to make it yourself, but you have to cut away the brush and carve your own path, which is the very definition of an authentic life. You are authoring it. The third path is the path that is neither determined by or even instigated by any exterior influence. Instead, it rises up from the depths of your soul as little more than a pulse, a vibe, a feel of, I know I have to do this. I know I have to go this route where there is no route. The third path is born of your unique individual authorship, born of the very voice of the universe, speaking its very specific and unusual message to your individual existence. It is to make a path where there is no path. In Arthurian legend, when the knights would begin their Grail quest, leaving Camelot, they would walk their horse along the edge of the great forest, looking and waiting for the place where there was no path, the starting point that just felt right. For the quest or journey to be original, it had to be where no one had trod it before. It had to be an outgrowth of the knight's own instincts and calling. The knight's task was to engage original experience and offer interpretation of it for others to experience. If there is no originality, it is merely a repetition of someone else's path, someone else's interpretation of life, and therefore not requiring courage and therefore not noble or worthy of his life. No one else can know what the universe or God or your soul speaks to you. No one can tell you what your third path is. That's part of what makes it so scary. And that fear is what makes it so much easier to just keep on listening to all the other voices in your life, all the external power sources that want to tell you what to do. The risk in listening to others rather than yourself is almost non existent. They keep liking you, and you get to keep residing in the safety of no risk. But the third path requires the sheer silence necessary to feel one's own inner voice. And this is only accomplished by first weeding out, or at least severely pushing back, all the voices in your head that want to run your life and tell you which path to take. Yet it also requires letting go of your own urge to say, screw you, and that's no small feat. Standing up to, standing against, and ultimately removing or reducing the voices of others in your life is one of life's scariest endeavors. Perhaps even more difficult is the task of ridding yourself of your lifelong reflex to stubbornly resist external influences. It is to cease being so tuned in to the influence of others and cease to be so controlled by them, always doing their opposite. Yet it is also the precursor to peace, and it is from that peace, within that peace, that your own true voice finds life and bubbles right up to the surface, yearning to be felt and lived. It is in this peace that your own first step and the next steps become visible, and that is the compass for the third path, requiring neither shoulds nor rebellion. On my left forearm is tattooed an excerpt from a quote by the great author and mythologist of the 20th century, Joseph Campbell. In his Power of Myth interviews with Bill Moyers for PBS, he discusses precisely this notion of authoring one's own path and the price it exacts. Moyers. But aren't many visionaries and even leaders and heroes close to the edge of neuroticism? Campbell. Yes, they are. Moyers. How do you explain that? Campbell. They've moved out of the society that would have protected them and into the dark forest, into the world of fire, of original experience. Original experience has not been interpreted for you, and so you've got to work out your life for yourself. Either you can take it or you can't. You don't have to go far off the interpreted path to find yourself in a very difficult situation. The courage to face the trials and to bring a whole new body of possibilities into the field of interpreted experience for other people to experience, that is the hero's deed. The hero's deed, that is, to be the hero of your own life, is to feel and live the voice of the third path at every crossroads as it rises up from within, sometimes as the thunderous knowing what is what and where one is going, but often a little more than a quiet pulse or ping. And that ping requires having the spiritual ability to engage solitude, still one's life and mind, and feel it rising up from within. Journaling recommendation. 1. Which path have you spent most of your life on, the first or the second? Shoulds or screw you? Which are you on now? Is your greater instinct to conform and do what's expected of you, or to rebel and take the path of the middle finger? 2. Do you have the courage to begin to cut a new third path? 3. What would the third path look like for you? What's the first scary step? 4. What is the scariest part about carving your own path where there presently isn't one? Song recommendation. I'm a big fan of this song by Queen. It both inspires and well defines clarity of purpose, which is precisely what comes when you have the courage to go your third path, when you have the courage to be original and follow the calling of the greatness from the pilot light of your soul. Download and savor the tune and message of One Vision.
How awesome is this? This is going to be the book we're going to be giving away. It is an autographed copy as well. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, share this out with your friends. At the end of the series, there will be a giveaway for a copy of your own book. Thank you.